everyone, welcome back to my Earth Friendly Kitchen. I'm Maria, and today we are making a shrimp coconut curry over rice. It's super fresh, super simple ingredients, very flavorful, very packed with flavor, and it doesn't take a lot of time to make at all. So we're gonna start with a pound of shrimp. The shrimp have been shelled, clean, deveined, so there's nothing on them. And I'm just going to start with a half of a lime, and we're going to squeeze that onto the shrimp. I'm going to save that half a lime to put in our broth here in a minute. So I'm just going to squeeze all that juice out there, and then I'm just going to do very simple salt and pepper, maybe about a quarter teaspoon of each, to season it up. These guys, these aren't fancy. They're very cheap. You can buy them. Like, I'll put a link on my bio. They're not very fancy. But just about a quarter teaspoon of each. Give that a stir. And we're going to set that aside and let that marinate. Now, the lime juice is going to start to tenderize the shrimp already, because we're going to be cooking the shrimp in the broth. And so they're going to just kind of get poached almost. So this is all also going to start really kind of tenderizing with the citric acid from the lime. And then we're going to do a red pepper, a green pepper, half of an onion, some ginger, some garlic, and a little extra shiitake mushrooms. I love this combination of flavors. I love really any kind of curry. This particular curry is going to be, very packed full of flavor. I have a spice blend that I'm actually going to be using, but I will put a description of, I'll create a blend for you. I have one that I make also. I just happen to have this one to use, that you can use if you don't have like a curry blend, which are pretty easy to find. If you go to your local Asian market, you should be able to find, pretty wide variety of curry blends. But even a lot of the just regular grocery stores have them now, because, people are really expanding their cultural influence in their kitchen, which I love. Obviously, growing up in a Italian Mexican household, curries were not something that we were, privy to very often. But, if you think about it, sauces and spices and things, those were very prevalent in my household. So I'm just creating kind of sticks, and I'm not going to dice these. I'm just going to cut them in half and make them a little bit smaller. So that's one red bell pepper. Pretty much every culture has their, variety of spice blends. It's just a matter of, what's familiar to you. But I really encourage people to, kind of step out of your comfort zones. Like when you're able to, and can afford to, really expand your palate, because there's so much delicious cuisines out there that I don't know if I'll ever make it to India or, South Asia. Oh, I did make it to South Asia, actually. I've been to Cambodia. But, they had amazing curries. The Khmer curry is just amazing. If you ever get a chance for Cambodian curry, I high 10 out of 10 recommend. But I don't know if I'll ever get it to India or not. I would love to, right? But who knows? So the way I can explore other cultures is going through their food, which I really love, because I feel like that's something that food does, is just like bring people together and bring cultures together. So I highly recommend expanding, which is why I like to teach things like this that I like to make. Now, these green peppers were already pretty small, I guess I could just say it was short as a pepper, but I'm still going to cut them in half again. You want them to be fairly uniform, when they're cooking, so that everything cooks, pretty evenly. But because it's going to cook in the broth, you don't have to worry too much about it like with the saute. We are going to saute a little bit at first, but we're going to mostly be cooking this as it simmers in the broth. I'm only using half the onion. So I'm going to put my other half away in my little saver. This is my discard. This is my freezer bag for those of you guys who don't know. I'm throwing the butts and the ends of things in here to save for a broth. It's empty because I actually made broth today, earlier today because it was full. And I said, oh, let me empty that out before I make this. Now, if you haven't watched that video, go back and check that out for my scrappy vegetable broth. We'll put a link in the description here to that video. But that's my way of being able to really kind of double use my veggies and be able to kind of get more bang for my dollar, you know, because I'm kind of using the essence of the scraps of all of these vegetables to perfume and flavor other dishes. And it saves me money because I don't have to go and buy broth. So we're just going to finely dice these onions and as opposed to the sticks that you had for the peppers, because, you know, onions are a little bit more pungent. I'm just going to tuck those down. Okay, so that's just a nice dice there. Add those to our peppers. And, you know, throw it around. Have some fun with it. Confetti onion. But you could use a regular Ziploc if you don't have a like a reusable, but I tend to recommend reusables, of course, anytime you can. Reduce reusable plastics. The cost of one may be more than, you know, the cost of like a box of 50 plastic bags, but you'll get more than 50 uses out of this bag, right? And so you're going to have this for a really, really long time, and it's going to save a ton of money, and you're going to save a ton of plastic going out there. So I recommend if you can, and actually most grocery stores nowadays have a reusable storage option that you can purchase, or you could just buy them online. I'll put a link, you know, to some as well in the description. I'm just chopping up here about 1 inch of ginger. Just kind of fine chopping that a little bit more down. This is going to perfume really beautifully into the broth. And then I have about 5, this is kind of a little flat guy, I don't know if we're going to use him, about 4 decent sized garlics. I'm just going to smash them to get the skins off super fast. And we'll throw our little flat guy in to the thing. Now, I'm not going to put this discarded lime because people don't put lime in broth usually, right? Like at least a basic vegetable broth, you're not going to find lime. So I'm just going to toss that in my composter that I have there. If you could see, you probably saw it was pretty full. I have to run it soon. But if you don't have a composter, you know, just throw it away. Or sometimes when you use limes, like citrus in general, after you squeeze the juice out of it, you know, you still have a lot of really great zest in the rinds themselves that you could use to help, like if you want to throw that squeezed lime into some water to just make it nice and refreshing, kind of lime flavored water with some lemon, maybe like a lemon lime. You could still get some use out of that if you wanted to before tossing it out, because why not get everything you can out of one ingredient? Again, saving costs. And so I'm just going to save that stuff by itself, and the shiitakes I'm going to do separate in a separate bowl because they're going to go in last when I start to kind of sweat all of the veggies. So I'm just going to get the back of my knife there. Safety first. And shiitake mushrooms I love. They're going to add a real earthiness, which curries in general tend to have in their spice blends. Just this really beautiful kind of earthy flavor. And they also have like a bite to them. They're different than general button mushrooms or baby bella mushrooms or something like that you would normally find in, your cooking. Save those little guys, stems for the bag. But they're going to add like a little bit of almost like chewiness, like texture for your soup. It's not going to be, I don't want to say chewiness. I mean like there's just going to be a nice bite to them. You want, if you're making a soup or a stew or a curry, unless you're making like a pureed soup, right? Like a butternut squash or a tomato soup or something like that. You generally want to have some texture in there. You don't want everything to be just mushy, Now, if you don't have shiitake mushrooms, or if you don't like mushrooms in general, just leave them out. That's okay. The shrimp is going to be, texture enough. If you don't have that, that should be fine. Or you can just use regular mushrooms if you want instead of the shiitakes if you can't have access to them, or if they're a little bit out of your price range. They are a little bit more expensive than generally than white buttons. So, all right. So that's it. That's the prep. So we're going to take all of this. We're going to go to the stove. We're going to put it on. We're going to put it all together, and then we're going to let it simmer for a little while. So you can join me over there. Let's see if I can't grab everything at once. Ooh, look at me, talent. All right. So we're going to start over here. I'm just going to get some oil in the pan. This is just canola oil. A little bit, maybe about 2 tablespoons there. And turn this into a medium high heat to start sweating the veg. So we're just going to put the peppers, the onions, the garlic, and the ginger right in the pot. I just love this dish. It's just so nice and colorful. Once you add the coconut milk, it gives us this real creaminess to it. But we're gonna just add a few spices to this, some fresh, some blended. But if you're looking at the breakdown of the cost of this dish, 1 pepper, right, or 2 peppers, I should say, will run you $1, $1.50, right, depending on where you are. A couple cloves of garlic, an inch of ginger, that should only run you about $1, $2, right? I mean, this is a dish that people pay lots of money for. If you go to like a restaurant or you sit down and order curry, you could pay a ton of money for this in an upscale restaurant, but you're going to make it in your home for a fraction of the price, and it's going to be just as fragrant, just as beautiful. I mean, listen, I will never say I'm going to be as authentic as sitting in a South Asian Indian cuisine restaurant, right? That would never happen here. But you're going to get pretty close. And then if you've been to India, or you've been to those South Asian countries where you've tasted curries before, or you're familiar with their flavor profile, I hope that this transports you back there and gives you that same kind of reminiscence to this dish. So we're just going to sweat these for a few minutes now. I'm not trying to sweat them all the way. I'm not trying to cook them down because they're going to cook along with the shrimp. And the reason why we do that is because as the vegetables break down, they're going to permeate the shrimp. They're going to flavor the shrimp, and they're going to flavor the broth once you put everything all together. So I'm really just listening for that sizzle that you're starting to hear now. And things are getting a little bit translucent with the onion. And so I'm just going to start adding in my other stuff. So first we'll do the shiitakes. Then we're going to add the lime juice. Okay, another half of the lime in there. All right. And then we're going to put in about a pint, about 2 cups of vegetable broth. Now, if you're making if you want to do this with chicken, or if you want to do this with lamb, make a lamb curry, chicken curry, right? Then you could use chicken broth, or you could use beef broth, right? If you're doing lamb, just, whatever your, flavor profile is. If you don't eat seafood, that's fine. You can just make it with another protein and then adjust, adjust your stuff. I mean, like we always say, don't be afraid to adjust. Make it yours, guys. Don't be afraid of the kitchen. All right, this is what I was talking about, this blend of curry masala, it's called here. So I'm going to put there's different kinds. It's kind of cool. I got this, a friend of mine who went to India got this for me. And they just kind of turns and gives me the different spices. Obviously, I use a lot of gram masala. But here for the curry, and we're going to do about a teaspoon of that. Oh, let's see, this little one. It's full to the top. There we go. I'm just gonna eyeball it actually, because it doesn't want to come out straight. So about 2 tablespoons, sorry, of the curry masala. Now the blend that I'm gonna give you is gonna actually make probably about a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup. But you're only gonna need 2 tablespoons. But you can save that blend. You know, just mark it, date it. You can save it for another use. You know, at another time. You know, if you want to make it again at some point. And then we're going to do a 1.5 tablespoons of cilantro. And we'll do a teaspoon of paprika. This is smoked paprika. You could just do regular paprika if you don't have smoked. That's fine. It's just what I have in the pantry today. And about a teaspoon of salt here. And we're going to do just kind of like a shake of crushed red pepper, a little bit of spice extra in there. And give that a nice little blend into your broth. Now, it's not going to be like a ton of broth. It's not going to be like super soupy, right? You're looking just really to get a nice creamy base because you're going to be pouring this over rice. So it's going to really go really nicely with that. And then I'm going to add the coconut milk. Now this is a whole can, 14-ounce can of full fat coconut milk. You could use reduced fat if you want to, or I mean, I don't know. I think the full fat flavor is good. And coconut milk is pretty healthy for you. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still a fat, right? It still has fat in it, but it's one of the healthier fats that you can add to your diet. If you can have it. Now, if you can't, for some reason, have coconut, if you're allergic to coconut or you don't like coconut for some reason, you could just add heavy cream to this as opposed to coconut milk. It'll give it a little bit of a different flavor, right? You'll be relying more on the spice blends. It won't have that kind of sweetness a little bit that the coconut offers. So you might want to back off a little bit on the spiciness of your dish. But that's, you know, you could use heavy cream there too. And then I'm also just going to throw in a little bit of fresh basil. I'm just going to throw this in whole. If you had Thai basil, that would also work well here. I'm just growing regular Genovese basil. You could now, if you don't have fresh basil, that's also okay. You could probably do about 2 teaspoons of dried basil and then it'll work just as fine. I just happen to have the fresh. So throw it in when I can. Okay. Now at this point, I'm going to taste it because I'm going to add raw shrimp to it, right? So I'm not going to taste it once I put the shrimp in. And then I'm going to taste it again once obviously the shrimp is cooked to see what else it may need. It's already close to perfect. You need a little bit more salt, probably about another 1/2 teaspoon or so. And everything else is just really going to cook through and all those flavors are going to come together once this goes in. All right, so now I'm going to add my shrimp in. I'm going to add that with the lime juice because that's going to add, you know, everything in together. Everyone in the pool, as they say. All right. So this is going to, now they start out, you know, as you know, nice and gray. And next time we pull this out, they're going to be pink. All right. So we're going to leave this on. I'm going to have this come up to a boil. And then once it comes up to a boil, I'm going to turn it down to a simmer for 15 minutes covered. And then we will see where we wind up. All right. We'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay. So this has been simmering away for about 15 minutes or so now. I brought it up to a boil, so that took, about 3 or 4 minutes to bring up to a boil, and then I turned the heat down once it was boiling, and you could just, one day they might invent smell-o-vision, where you can actually smell it, but I hope you get to smell it because you're going to make it in your own kitchen. So I'm just gonna, I have some rice here. I have some basmati rice. To be honest, guys, I just got some Uncle Ben's ready rice. I'm not sponsored by Uncle Ben, by the way, but I, didn't have time to set up my rice cooker. Not that it takes a lot of time, but I just didn't want to bother with it, to be honest. I'm just gonna spoon this in. So it's just this really nice, flavorful, and that broth is going to flavor the rice so nicely. I like using basmati. You can use jasmine too. This goes really well. But it's just such a nice, delicious broth that I love. Just those types of rice go really well. I mean, you could use plain white rice too, or even brown rice. But you're just not going to get that perfume that kind of goes along with a delicious curry. So you can just see, I just love the beautiful colors. The shrimp are nice and pink, nice and done. And then, the peppers are nice and soft. So we're just going to get a bite here with the broth. This is going to be hot, but delicious. Oh man. It came together so nicely. Everything just comes together. You get a little bit of that heat from the crushed red pepper that just kind of comes behind everything. You have the sweetness up front from the coconut. I really 10 out of 10 recommend that you guys make this dish at home. Super fast. I mean, pretty much under 15 minutes of prep, about 20 to 25 minutes of cook time. Can't really beat that for a delicious, very comforting, very cozy kind of meal for this Thai, South Asian inspired shrimp coconut curry. So if you want more recipes like this, please like and subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.